And gentlemen, I am BDLM, coming with my buddy J4Y, bringing you episode number 86 of our Dota On Demand podcast on this beautiful Tuesday night. It is absolutely Tuesday. It is not a day before, and the weather outside is exactly what it's supposed to be for Tuesday. How are you this delightful Tuesday evening?
Not confused at all. Not confused at all, because Tuesdays you might get confused, but... No, it is Tuesday, so I guess I am confused. No, I just completely messed it up, didn't I? Damn it.
Yes, you did.
Wow,
okay.
That was so hard for me to follow. So, as he's alluding to,
yes,
we are actually doing this on Monday because we were so excited by this patch coming out last week that we just were like, we're going to end up talking about it all tonight probably anyway, so we might as well just do the podcast tonight and then let you guys maybe get some early access. We'll see how we feel tonight. Depends on what time this ends, too. We don't know how long this is going to run, and if it runs into, like, me carrying the computer up to my bed, falling asleep while we're finishing it up, maybe I'll release it on Tuesday, but then you guys wouldn't know any different, right? So.
It could take years, really. It's hard to say at this point. The patch, 8.1, I mean, lots of good stuff in there. We're going to be going over almost all of it, pretty much, kind of like we did last time, going through 6.8.1, and just looking through mostly all the hero changes, the item changes, and even some of the bug fixes, because some of them are, I feel like, really easy to miss if you guys just sort of scroll past them just looking for the hero changes, so we'll be sure to bring your attention to some of the crazy ones there. So, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If you don't mind my asking.
My name is Justin, not Jay.
Mm-hmm. The last couple times we've done these patch episodes, I've kind of tried to look at the patch. I feel like it's a really kind of nice thing to do in general. Looked at the patch to try to figure out what the overarching theme is, to see where the game's trying to move, and I feel like it's just a really useful thing to do. Hey, all you out there, you just pause it real quick, and you come up with your idea, and then you come back, and then you can hear J4Ys. What is your sort of impression about this patch overall? Do you like it? Do you hate every bit of it? Do you wish there were more Meepo buffs?
There was one, thank God. No, I have to say my first thought was Gabe Newell's house is really dirty. That was my first thought.
Don't get that.
It's called the Spring Cleaning Update.
Okay. Okay.
That was so witty that you just missed it. Second thought, though, is after going through all the changes and whatnot, I came up with a fancy little title myself. You can put your 2 cents on it if you'd like.
I'd like to.
What you can't see can hurt you.
Oh.
That's deep, isn't it? It's pretty deep. Pretty dark, pretty deep. So, to expand on that, seem to be a lot of changes with things involving vision and possibly sound. But basically... Possibly. I don't know.
Who knows? We haven't read the patch notes.
We haven't gotten there yet. But if I were to just guess, no, it seems like they really have made up. There was a ton of changes. Some of them are obviously going to be more exciting to players than other ones. The lists are huge for bug fixes. That was the main priority, and I think it was awesome that they got a ton of those fixes cleaned up right before TI4. So that was kind of my impression. I guess I was overall satisfied with the patch. There obviously were parts I wasn't thrilled about, and other parts I was really happy to see. So I'd overall give this like a solid C+.
Dang.
That's above average. Yeah, C's average, so it's barely above average. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
It's rough.
I know.
Just gonna do that right in front of Gabe while he's cleaning his house out? And drop
Poor
bombs
guy.
Like that, Jay?
You know he's got a maid for that. Come on. He's not doing it himself.
It's true. Probably true. Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, especially, I feel like the changes to the sound, especially, which we're going to talk about early, pretty, I think, impactful, and maybe something that might get overlooked at first glance. Actually, Vision having to do with one of my favorite changes this patch, actually, to Zeus, which we'll actually be touching much later in the episode, as it is down in the Z's. But yeah, the things I think stood out to me were just that this really does feel like a patch that's right before the International, like you're pointing out. I mean, you have a lot of really small tweaks and changes to heroes that are really prevalent right now, and then a bunch of just like, oh my god, be relevant, push you into the meta changes to other heroes, some of which I am not thrilled about at all. There have been changes that I haven't been in love with, some that I feel like I have to put up with maybe, but some of these are just like, come on. Ugh, but what can you do? And I feel like something I'm gonna definitely want to get your opinion on at the end of the episode. I feel like a lot of the things that professionals and casters have been pointing out that I feel like you can even get a sense of in your pub games was just simply not addressed with this patch, and I feel like it was almost made worse to a certain degree. And I guess I'll just sort of let the cat out of the bag now with the dire Roshan advantage, which I feel like might almost be more prevalent than it's ever been, at least for Dota 2. So I definitely want to get your opinion on that later in the show. But how about we start rolling into these changes? What do you think?
I suppose now was the time, while the camera's rolling. Yeah,
I guess.
Started.
I'm going to go ahead and start us off with some of the bug fixes. I went through, there are a bunch of them, and you should definitely read through them because some of these are actually pretty dramatic, and I feel like they should almost be listed in the hero changes because you just go like, wait, what was happening now? I think a big one for spectating, fix Meepo's net worth not working in the stat drop down while spectating. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's a really obnoxious thing that's kind of been in the couple of Meepo games that we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
To not really be able to have an accurate idea of where that hero stands, and I definitely appreciate having that around.
Yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't even one of the highlighted ones because it's such a spectator issue. Like it's such a big deal when you're watching. I guess there's not millions of Meepos. Well, there are, but not across millions of games. So therefore, I guess they figured it wasn't as a large thing. But I agree, that was actually a pretty nice change for the spectator view.
Fix sound elements from the following spells, ignoring Fog of War. Now, there are a bunch of them. I'm not going to read them out loud.
No.
Me and Jay were scientists of a sort, and we decided to test some of this out to make sure we understood exactly what was happening. And basically, you can't hear these spells in the Fog of War now, which fine. I feel like that should make some sense. But, we're going to be talking about Keeper of the Light later, but Blinding Light just galloping out of the trees to hurt your tender parts is kind of obnoxious, and I want to hear it. I want to know what's coming. I want to be able to brace, to clench first, but you can't do that anymore. And there are a lot of others. I feel like a lot of these spells too are on the not as popular heroes. There are some adjustments to heroes like Centaur Warrunner's Double Edge that you can now not hear, and some other sort of meta-relevant heroes. But I would say 9 times out of 10 going through this list, it's heroes that are not currently popular. So I feel like buffs to really everybody named.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, obviously the element of surprise is a huge deal. And by the way, you're talking about Blinding Light. Actually, that's his knockback blind, not his illuminate. But that's okay. That's okay.
It's
Either one, you don't want to be
Jay, I'm blind. I can't tell the difference. It's just got super bright. What am I supposed to... How do you tell the difference?
Anyways, but yeah, no, it's all really nice to get these fog wars. Kind of leading into my title of this episode, kind of self-proclaimed, but about things that you can't hear or see will hurt you. And it's pretty interesting, and I like that change a lot. I think like I'm saying, the element of surprise is just so key and can really impact how a fight turns out dramatically if you have a higher skill, of juking around the force or doing different things. I think it's going to aid to the players that can take advantage of it greatly.
Yeah, and I mean, just to piggyback on top of that one, you can no longer see trees being destroyed if they're hidden by Fog of War. Cool. That makes perfect sense and should have always been like that.
Wait, there's a tree 20 miles over there. Did it just fall? I think it did.
I'll be honest, some of these, it's almost scary that once you see that they've been fixed, that they were like that the whole time.
Right.
And you're like, wait, this isn't alpha anymore. We're at... I mean, there's so many tiny things that you're always going to have to fix. And, going back to early beta, people are just like, oh my gosh, I'm cool if you stop releasing things, if you just start fixing the bugs. And, I'm definitely glad that they have definitely touched that a lot in this patch, but yeah, some of these are a little bit silly. And here's a great example, I feel like, of changes that I was surprised were a thing, and then also not sort of listed in a hero's buffs. Fix Beastmaster's Wild Axes, not being able to target units. And then fix Faceless Void's Time Walk, not traveling full distance. The Beastmaster Wild Axes, we played Dota, and then we hopped to a bunch of other games, and then we came back to Dota 2.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that was a thing, and Beastmaster has been in this game forever. Forever. How has no one not noticed that was supposed to work that way?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like the Nyx and Pale thing, being able to target someone. I mean, generally, I think if you're like if you're a skilled Beastmaster, you're probably not targeting a hero 9 times out of 10 anyways, but, still, I think having the ability to shouldn't be, completely negated. Plus, for lesser skill, or newer players, I should say, they're probably like, oh, WTF, why can't I use this on this hero? What is going on here? So, yeah, I guess I could see your point there.
Well, I mean, the next thing I feel like was to adjust it so it's like, okay, well, now it's a skill shot instead of a point and click. But it reminds me of the Spectre bugs. Do you remember those? Where it was like 4 or 5 things about how Spectre's haunt worked that were just not right at all, where you go, oh my gosh, he's actually missing out on significant amounts of damage because this just doesn't work right. And it's just because someone was like, hey, I feel like there's a difference between Dota 1 and Dota 2. Don't know if it's intended or not, but it's kind of like crazy to see these things that we're still like, oh, we forgot to port that over correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. This one I feel like is actually really huge and is going to piggyback on maybe some of our Omni Knight discussion later. The Cyclone effect from Yule's Scepter and Invoker's Tornado can now be purged.
Yeah.
What just happened?
That's really interesting. I'm surprised that's even called a bug fix, unless that was like that in Dota 1, because I never knew that was intended, that you could purge that. Yeah, that would be really fascinating then, to have that change done.
Yeah, and there are changes to purge with other items, and there are also Yule Scepter changes. But I definitely think that's interesting, especially with the Invoker's Tornado. I'm wondering if that stops the damage now. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but definitely, I think opens up the door for, the 12th least used item in Dota 2, in 6.79 at least, which Diffusal Blade. Mm-hmm. I think actually gives it some nice potential. Actually gives it some more usage. And like I said, 12th least used item in the game. So I'm kind of happy to see that a change happens that actually gives it, not that you're building a Diffusal Blade to counter out a Yule Scepter or Invoker's Tornado, but hey, if you have an extra reason to get it, why not?
Exactly. No, I mean, it's a neat concept, and like you said, it's not going to get all the practicality of it, but it's still going to be something that a player can now use to their advantage. So yeah, and Invoker is obviously prevalent, so we'll probably see tornadoes still flying around here. We can't purge those silly cyclones though from the
Wildkins.
The Wildkins, unfortunately.
Imbo Wildkins.
Gosh darn that, so OP. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess to sort of go on the back of the Faceless Void correction, fix Earthshaker's fissure range not being properly increased to 1400.
Whoops.
So hey, he's back. Fixed a bug where Lone Druid's Bear wasn't affected by passive abilities such as Tiny's Craggy Exterior or Meepo's Geostrike. What? That is really interesting. And I can't say that I've ever thought of Meepo as a counter to Lone Druid before, but my god, when you read that sentence, it kind of sounds a lot like it.
That's really fascinating, to be honest.
Fascinating.
I mean, I guess you don't see a lot of Lone Druid versus Meepos in professional games, so you don't get to witness that
Not yet.
very often. Or Tiny's. Tiny, I mean, he still gets picked up on occasion, but it's only the teams that like to go IO Tiny generally. Craggy Exterior, so useful against a Lone Druid Bear. I mean, that is like amazingly helpful. So the fact that wasn't proccing before is pretty dramatic, I'd say, for that regard.
Absolutely, and I mean that you don't see the Meepo versus Lone Druid versus matches. I feel like that is actually a really strong counter because you can't recall the bear and when he's taking damage, and you also, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like the Lone Druid's weakness. If you're able to isolate that bear and you're not able to properly support him, Blink Meepo, being able to get on top of that bear, do a bunch of damage, slow it down significantly, I feel like that's actually a really crazy Meepo buff that you don't necessarily get to read in the changelog to Meepo. Mm-hmm. But there were some like fun, almost painful to read ones as well. Not to like backhand Valve too much or Ice Frog, but some of these I just found way too funny. Not to mention, fix Sand King to support simultaneously active epicenters, e.g. via Refresher Orb. I can't wait to see that as a thing.
Oh, support it! Yes! Well, let's be honest. Aghanims is like the worst item you can go on him. Even though people do still, it's not the worst, okay. But it's definitely not as good. Let's just say Veil. Obviously, Veil is way better. We've had that discussion. But you know what? I'm down for Refresher Orb with Sand King. Let's see just...
Double Epi.
That is a lot of ground shaking going on.
It's a lot of damage. Fixed Juggernaut's Omni Slash, being able to hit units inside of Tusk's Snowball.
I can't say I've ever witnessed that one before, but that's pretty
Not
impressive. If you could, I say let him have that because that's pretty impressive to get that off. To be honest, I don't know how you even worked that, but that's pretty sweet.
Faceless Void's Chronosphere no longer reveals allied invisible heroes.
Yep.
That's nice.
That sucked. That's actually really nice. I'm glad they made that change.
And maybe the coup de grace. Courier abilities will no longer give magic stick charges.
What?
You can speed them up, but it comes at a cost.
Wow.
Apparently that was a thing.
Wow.
So, happy fixes, everybody. You can now double Epicenter and target people with wild axes. Congratulations.
This is also actually pretty interesting. Dragon Knight's Dragon Form Splash will now do half damage to nearby units if it misses the primary target. That's actually pretty cool.
That is really nice, actually. There are a lot of them in there like that. I mean, these aren't by far, I think, the all of the important ones or all of the most interesting ones. There are a lot, to be honest. And, definitely, like I said, I know when I was looking through this, I was like, fixes, skip. But this might actually be a really great patch to go back and take a look through because there's a lot of stuff. But I guess on to the general gameplay update. Do you wanna take the reins on this, my friend? So I got to go through all that.
Yeah, no, this is good. Like you were suggesting, everyone should try to sit down and take some time to read through these. That we are going to go over all the hero and item changes individually, but there's so many bugs and other ones that it would just take us probably 2 days to do this whole freaking thing if we tried to.
Probably.
So, we'll get to the more exciting stuff for you guys now. What you've been waiting for, and we did get viewer questions, by the way, but we will, as we approach, we will call you out and give you a hey.
Call you out.
How dare you? I did ask actually before the cast, so I'm glad you guys gave us some responses. So, on that note, let's start with General 6.81, which I have to also say is a general statement. To me, a little surprising that some of these heroes are still in Captain's mode after this patch, because I figure some of them seemed rather large of changes and could potentially really heavily impact, especially riding on that note, the fact that the qualifier's in like 2 weeks. So, yeah, that's going to be real interesting to see how the meta shakes up in 2 weeks. But, alright, now we can get back on track here. Roshan base armor increased by 1. Yay? Now he's invincible.
Again, my issue with Roshan is not his armor. I'll leave it at that until later.
Exactly,
but
we will get to that later.
I'm fine with it. I think that's cool. He probably should be a little bit harder to.
So obviously,
deal with,
trying to be a detriment to level 1 Roches and early Roche kills, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. I think we're done with that one for now. Attack speed. For now. Attack speed now always continually adjusts based on the latest modifications applied to the unit. So basically saying this makes it so heavy attack speed slows don't linger into the next attack even after their duration has expired, most impactful with abilities like Untouchable and Fire Spirits.
Yep, I mean I think that almost feels like a fix to me. Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like you could swap out one of the fixes for a hero or an update with this, because that feels like a fix to me, and I think that that's absolutely a great thing to do, especially because you figure, I mean, I guess the Enchantress Untouchable isn't considered OP since it got buffed, but people have a lot of issues with the Phoenix and how balanced he is in general, so I'm fine to see that change.
They might have done something more to him.
Maybe. Possible.
Let's read on. I like this one too. The melee illusions created by a Rune of Illusion in the river take 200% instead of 300% damage.
Two things. Some benefit of having an illusion rune as a melee mid-hero, however few many of those there are that are relevant. And also, LOL, you get to tank Roshan a little bit more with your illusion runes. Because if you move command your illusions onto Roshan and they don't attack him, they will sit there and soak some damage for you. So, illusion I feel like is probably the least valuable of the runes. So it's kind of nice that you get to see this little bit of a buff. And again, there are a couple of pretty popular melee mid heroes like the Naga and the Ember Spirit. But really, I feel like a lot of the heroes like Beastmaster and Night Stalker that have sort of used to be seen in the middle lane pretty often have sort of fallen off, so it's kind of nice to just get to see even this slight advantage given to them.
Yeah, let the melee heroes get a little bit back here. I agree. These other ones, not to do with Cant's mode, but still good to know as our general players. Random draft, hero selection pool increased from 22 to 24, so 2 more heroes in the random draft pool. I guess they're trying to accommodate just having so many heroes in the pool in general right now. The Captain's Draft Hero Selection Pool increased from 24 to 27, and the Captain's Draft Hero Bands increased from 4 to 6, which is awesome. And then the Meepo is no longer available in ability drafts. Sorry, everyone. No more United We Stand, Magnuses, and Treant Protectors.
What a thing that should have been there the whole time. I mean, it was there for a while.
You don't like the army of 800 Treants going down a lane? I mean, I thought that was pretty nice.
I feel like if you're playing ability draft and that sort of thing makes you angry, then you've kind of missed the point of ability draft, which I feel like is to make the most ridiculous lineup you can. Not to make a functional hero, but to just be as absurd. Like my favorite one, which was like take aim and walrus punch on a ranged hero. Hilarious. I loved every second of it.
That's rude.
It's great.
Can
it's
you
amazing.
get Pudge Hook? Is he in there? Because then if you had United We Stand with Pudge Hooks, that would be pretty fantastic. You just have
come back to the fountain, my friend.
I got 5 hooks down an assembly line. You're gonna make your way down. Oh well. Well, sorry. You guys have approximately like 3 days to take advantage of United We Stand, because as this hits, and they said it is going to hit this next week coming up. So be prepared for all of this this week. So yeah, that's just the general notes. I guess we can head on into heroes.
Yeah, number 1, Abaddon. Aghanim Scepter Borrowed Time now redirects 35% of all damage dealt to nearby allied heroes to Abaddon when active. How much do you love this? You're not even allowed to hate it. You have to love it. Just how much?
Here's the thing. Alright, I guess if I'm just completely looking at that and not anything else about Abaddon, I like it a lot. It's really cool. Reminds me of a World of Warcraft ability that I believe Paladins had, where they could redirect a lot of the raid damage to themselves to kind of tank it for their team. And obviously, since he's only gaining health and not taking any when he uses Borrowed Time, clearly an amazing redirection of damage, because you're not even harming yourself. It's all positive. And it says this is a 900 range around him, is the allies, how they get the redirected damage. Now, that being said, I don't see him getting Aghanim still in any game. And actually, I'm going to just introduce one of our first questions here, because this kind of relates. From Ollie Crooksmith, he said, how possible or legit do you think it is to get Aghanims on the new Aghanim heroes and other supports with powerful Aghanim upgrades, specifically Abaddon, Kodal, Omni, and Shadow Demon? So we'll get to the other ones when we get there, but he's basically asking, is it going to be viable to get these Aghanims now that they've changed or upgraded them? What do you think?
For this one in particular, not really. I just feel like we're going to run into this issue a lot when we talk about these heroes, but when you're comparing what you get out of that to
Right.
what you might be needed to build, like your Vlads or your mech or something like that, or just buy wards, I feel like it's hard to justify. This one is maybe one of the most arguable, though, I will say, because 35% is a lot. And, there are those Loda Abaddons, where you just go carry Badon. And, maybe that is something that you see as a decent item choice. Because, really, you're just getting all the stats to give you more damage, more int to mist coil with. So I feel like Abaddon is a hero that certainly benefits from the build-up 100% to Aghanims. But how often are you going to come across this much money? It's going to be rare, unless you're maybe Loda playing Abaddon. In which case, I almost feel like if you are going to be like a core Abaddon, maybe you could say that 35% damage direct is kind of worth it. Maybe you say that versus what a mech is giving you. I don't know. The fact that it's more expensive.
Here's the other thing with it, though, is that it's not like it's just going to be always the most fantastic time to use it either. You're basically going to try to use it when your whole group is taking a significant amount of damage, which might mean you're like around full health when this all goes down. So you're procking it preemptively, and therefore when actually the time probably comes where you might need to be invulnerable later in the fight, you now don't have it available because you had to use it so early. And yes, maybe that turning the tide paid out in the long run over you needing it to survive later in the fight, but that's just one of my main issues with it, is now you're saying, okay, we need to use my ulti not when it's completely necessary per se, but and you also have to, there's just so many conditions, I almost feel like, for it to be really successful, the way they've changed it.
I feel like it's probably most useful in situations where you have a high amount of AoE physical and magic damage, where you can say that Pipe of Insight would be great, except there's still X, Y, and Z physical damage we have to worry about, and you can say that mech isn't enough. I'm struggling to think of what crazy situation we're in that is a sentence that would come through my brain. But it could be out there. Maybe you're talking about being in a game with a Shadow Fiend, or being in a game with a Shadow Fiend. Spectre, I guess, would kind of be along those same lines.
Rana, perhaps. I don't know. There are some heroes that do that kind of mixed damage a lot throughout the game, but it just, like I said, I was comparing Aghanims is 4,200 gold, the mech is 2,300, Pipe is 3,625, so these are all, of course, cheaper than Oggs. You could even go mech and Necro book level 1, that's almost the same price. There just seems like there's other items that are comparable that you kind of expect Abaddon to go anyways for his team, like the mech, for example, is like the number one item you expect your Abaddon to get. So unless he really doesn't need to get it for his team for whatever reason, then sure, okay, let's get him in the Aghanims. But I feel like you're still going to, in every game, want to get pretty much Arcane Boots for the most part, or Tranks maybe, but then the mech / Pipe. He just seems like such a very protective defensive hero that Aghanims is just greedy. That's all I can say.
And especially with, I think, the buff to Pipe, which we're going to get to later, I feel like that item feels a little bit more legit now, too. And so, I don't know. Again, I feel like of some of the support Aghanims that were brought into the game, this one feels maybe the most arguable to go with, as opposed to against. But, yeah, that's a lot of time for Abaddon. So,
number one done! Yeah!
Yes! Oh, on a roll. Ancient Apparition, Chilling Touch attack speed reduction increase from -15 to -20. Good. Most picked hero of 6.8. Unless the number has changed recently and I haven't been paying attention. So, I'm totally okay with this.
And this is hitting him where it hurts. This is the reason a lot of times why he's getting picked. Obviously, his Aghanims upgrade is getting used in team fights, but so they're not touching that, which I don't think they need to, because it's an expensive item for support to get. But this obviously is hurting, essentially, a lot of times his early game, where he's going to put that on 3 or 4 heroes, and they're going to be wailing on people with this insane early damage. So I think this is a very good change. Yeah,
it is a lot of damage, and I feel like that's fine. For what you're getting, I think that's fine.
Yep.
Anti-Mage, Mana Void, area of effect increased from 450 to 500.
Why?
I'm okay with it.
I mean, I'm fine with it, but why did they do it? I
Because
feel like
it's
the
such a good
ulti is
picture.
so strong already that why do they feel the need for the AoE to be even bigger? I don't know.
I guess to give him some viability again, because he's really completely fallen off. I
Do
don't
you
know the last
really
time an
want
anti-mage has been picked.
Anti-Mage back in?
Listen,
We've all
oh,
been having parties and cheering on his lack of presence. I have been, at least. I don't know.
this is how much I hate. Let's go with certain future buffs to heroes. I would rather see anti-mage get buffed than one of the other changes added this patch.
Okay, that's
Flat
fair.
out.
That and very vague and as good as you can do it. But let's just say Invoker's not going to be happy with this. That's all I have to say.
He might be upset. I mean, really, yeah. I mean, it's only 50, and because I never see anti-mage, I'm fine with it. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Just saying, get ready for qualifiers. Here comes the 80-minute farming anti-mage games. You asked for it. Everyone remember, BDLM asked for it. So
I didn't say I liked it. I said I liked it better than some of the other stuff.
I don't
So
think
it's
a
like,
50 AoE increase is going to make him more relevant or anything. So it's fine.
I don't, and so that's. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like it's not like all of a sudden he's gonna be a thing, but he's not getting used. So I'm okay with
Yeah.
giving him little pushes and.
We heard that sometimes like these heroes get like the minor tweaks just so like their name pops up in patch notes, so people are like, "Oh yeah, that hero. Let's use him." This
Here's
kind
the
of
thing.
feels like one of those changes that's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Let's use them." I don't know, but whatever.
Axe counter helix now uses pseudo random chance. Yay, Axe.
And please explain that to the viewers.
Just less random ice frog hate. You don't spin to win, and you don't fall apart while you're just getting auto attacked by everybody, and never spin. Basically, more normalized chance
Procs.
of
Yeah.
procs, and I feel like that's totally fine. Because even though Axe, I feel like still every once in a while people will bring him out and try to use him in a strategy, and sometimes he actually looks pretty legit. Let's help the poor guy out. I don't want to see Axe in every game, but I want to see teams that like him be able to use him. Because there have been teams that have messed with him, like Liquid has, Loda's
He's
played
getting
him.
picked up recently. Not all the time, but I actually watched a couple games today, and he was used in 2 of the games. So it is some teams that just will always favor him. So obviously there are other players. Like Bulba, I know loves the hero. There are some hero players that are just like, give me Axe, I'm gonna kill their whole team, and that's how the game's gonna go. But actually, I heard someone saying that Axe is kind of a counter to Centaur in a way. I didn't quite grasp it at first, but I suppose that he obviously can hold his own against him. But either way, I agree. I think it's an overall a buff. I mean, yeah, you're not going to get those awesome streaks where you just spin like 20 times when 3 rage creeps are attacking you, but, at the same time, over the long scheme of things, especially if you are a jungle Axe, like in pubs and stuff, this should dramatically help you clear the jungle, I feel like, instead of like, alright, I've been attacked for like 20 seconds and I haven't procced once, I'm getting pissed off and dying, and yeah, I think it's a good change.
Yeah, and being boomer bust on a hero with a 50% win rate, fine. But when you have a 46% win rate, it's hard to tempt teams into taking a hero that isn't dependable and is more likely to lose than win.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with this. How about you read a couple? I took all the A's. Maybe you take all the B's. We'll have an alphabet.
Look at
thing.
this. Look at this.
Oh,
This is a great...
cutting edge.
great-
Code on demand.
We do. We go all out for you folks. There's a lot of bees. Holy moly. So, Bat Rider, Flaming Last of Mana cost increase from 150 to 225.
Doesn't matter.
Pretty irrelevant. Well, I mean, he is picked all the time still, or banned. He is very relevant hero-wise. But 75 mana, I mean, yeah, it's kind of annoying for him, but I feel like that's not going to really impact him too much. It's kind of like the Nature's Prophet ulti change in a way. Like, they increase the Wrath of Nature cost. It's like, alright, well, sure, but he's still going to be fine,
I feel like it impacts his early game a little bit. Okay. This to me, I feel like is almost like Omni Knight, who we're going to be talking about later, where I feel like the hero is just, because of the kit, so on the teetering edge of being picked all the time or being picked never.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like changes like this, yeah, if you're hurting his early game, fine, but he still does the exact same thing that he's been doing, and that is still going to be an important attribute of the hero.
Right.
So, I'm happy to see Batrider nerfs because, like you said, pick banned still really consistently. So, but I still think he's going to be almost as relevant.
Oh yeah, no, this won't take him out. Like you said, he's got an itch, and he's going to continue to fulfill that as long as teams need that filled. So, Beastmaster. God, just saying that name, I know you're starting to get excited. Base damage increased by 4. Thoughts?
It sounds minor, but think about how we've seen Beastmaster in the olden days, and how we've seen him most recently. The switch from really being a mid hero to an off lane, and I feel like buffing his base damage is a direct push towards that middle role. And, we mentioned again with the Illusion Rune earlier, it's sort of like a minor push to the melee heroes in the middle lane that might be getting those Illusion Runes. I like it. It's not game-breaking. This is another consistent Beastmaster buff, and I'm fine with it. I don't know that we're going to start seeing more Beastmaster middle because of this buff, but I think it's...
Or offlane.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
I feel like this isn't as big of an offlane buff just because how often does a Beastmaster walk up to the
last
creeps?
hit? Yeah, that's true.
Unless
for
it's in
agents,
1v1.
but still you don't even last hit agents. Yeah, you're really just using your axes for everything, so I don't know.
I guess it does help him if he has some 1v1 matchups, but that I feel like is seldom. So
That's right.
I
attack
like
speed
it.
build,
Fine.
the Inner Beast build, like China, we saw that, a couple
yeah.
points in there. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bloodseeker, they're really trying, man. They're trying. Blood Rage cast point improved from 0.6 to 0.4, so a little bit faster there. And the Blood Rage can no longer be dispelled, and they say using abilities like Manta or BKB will not remove the silence.
I like this a lot, and I feel like it actually makes Bloodseeker a lot more viable.
Yep. Blood Rage was a huge part of why you pick him, is to get that silence locked down on heroes. And as soon as a hero got Manta or BKB, like it says, he's pretty irrelevant at that point. So, yeah, I think this is a great change, making Blood Rage useful throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you're just thinking about using it to go on, let's say, Anti-Mage, or a hero that might pop BKB, use their escape, and just jump away. And even if you go to use it on yourself, I feel like if you're chasing down a hero and you're like, I want the damage right now, you don't have to stop for as long to cast on yourself. 0.2 seconds sounds small, but that's a third of the cast time that you're shaving off there. So I feel like it's a small number, but it reads pretty big.
Here's the thing. All right. With this buff, just bear with me here a sec.
I'll try.
Can you imagine DK,
Nope. Okay.
Mushi Bloodseeker mid, with Ice Ice Ice, Invoker, X-Sword offlane? Think about the easy Sunstrikes every day. He's already a god at it. Now he's going to have Vision. I mean, I'm just saying. I think it makes sense.
You're crazy.
I know, but Mushi's crazy too. I think they could pull it off. I'm just saying. I don't know.
And then you use support Naga so that you can net people.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Bloodseeker.
You have to
I
play
feel
it mid, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to go off lane because you're probably not getting last hits, and he's too squishy. And you could run him in the safe lane, but there's so many better carries out there to get the farm with. I remember one game we played where there was a roaming Bloodseeker, quote unquote, who really just had the vision buff for us, and that was pretty much all he did. But and then he would ulti when he got 6, and that was kind of nice. But yeah, it wasn't the most effective thing.
I have to say that I like this aspect of Bloodseeker being buffed. I like that his utility is being buffed as opposed to maybe his damage or his base stats, because I feel like being able to break movement speed max is plenty stat enough, so being able to just sort of make his silence more effective, I feel like that might even just be the sort of purpose of the hero anyway, to be more towards the utility than being this hero that runs around and just murders everybody.
Yep.
Obviously, he can snowball out of control, but I feel like even in the games where he was picked up, where you got to see him being used, he could even pick up 1 or 2 big items, but it didn't seem to matter a whole lot. I'm almost kind of okay with that. Don't feel like he should maybe be, a be all end all sort of carry. And I do like the way that he can sort of try to counter enemy heroes with the silence. And now that they can't get out, BKB, that's pretty slick. I'm digging it.
That's amazing. No, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Pro Scene, I'm still not foreseeing much of a selection, but Mushi could go for it one day. So, Bounty Hunter track cast range increased from the 900, 1050, 1200 just to straight 1200 at all three ranks.
Cool. Moving on. No, it's fine.
Buffs for Bounty Hunter, yay!
Gotta buff these melee offlaners, man. Only
and his illusions are gonna only take 200%. It's perfect, really. I like the next one a lot. I do. Not a lot, but I like it. Brewmaster. So, if you have not attacked for 10 seconds, your next attack will always activate a Drunken Brawler critical hit. And, if you have not been attacked for 10 seconds, Drunken Brawler will cause you to evade the next attack. This mechanic carries over to your Fire Spirit when it has the passive via Aghanim Scepter. Before you answer or say your word, didn't we predict Brewmaster just to suddenly gallop up in usage, and he has been just nowhere?
Isn't
that sad?
Game. It is. I really liked the change that got made to him. I felt like you had a lot of the corrections made to him that you sort of wanted to see to make him viable. I like this one, though. This is pretty slick. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the assumption is that these are not mutually exclusive to his spirit. And by that I mean that if his spirit procs one of these, that his will sort of be separate so that the time that he spends broken up counts towards this effect happening. If that makes sense?
We did not do the science for that, but...
We missed some science. I'm assuming that that's how it works, because I feel like that makes it a real thing. So that you basically come out, you'll dodge, you'll whack somebody on the face.
That's pretty
a little
cool.
bit extra damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if your Fire Spirit gets to do it too, I don't know that... I mean, basically, I feel like your Fire Spirit gets one dodge, is what this amounts to, and one pow right to the kisser, right when he comes out. So, I like it. I like Brewmaster. I miss him. But, I think it's nice. I feel like this is a kind of obvious major tournament patch where you're just going, let's give these heroes that we don't want to all of a sudden be everything right before major tournament, we'll give them a little bit of a poke, see if anybody wants to use them. Because again, if you look back to TI3, right, we had a really significant number of the heroes picked. I really wish I could remember the percentage now, but across the qualifiers and the tournament, I'm going to make up a number, let's say more than 80%. Probably got picked. It was a really large number. I was actually impressed with it. Even though that some of these heroes, they got picked for one game, they got picked for two. I feel like giving these heroes that we don't see a lot, even just a little bit of a nudge, is going to help add to that for this international. And so that, there are going to be teams, I feel like, that pick up the Brewmaster at least a handful of times to give it a go. That wouldn't surprise me in the least.
No, absolutely. I mean, the ulti cooldown change in 6.8 is like what we thought would push him over, but now he's getting even more significant buffs. Well, not significant, but buffs nonetheless. And yeah, he should definitely see the Day of Light coming up for him. I have really no doubt in my mind, unless he's against DoD, and then he will not be. I
need a buzzer for when you do things like that, because I think that'd be amazing.
Did I say Day of Light?
You said the Day of Light.
Well, he won't see that either, because I don't know what that is.
Can you just buzz? Hold on
like
a second.
A hawk on Sunday, folks.
Stop everything that's happening right now and just pause and soak in what just happened.
The Jeopardy ding, like every time something happens.
Yes.
All right, so moving along from that
that's
moment.
That's what happened.
Bristleback. Warpath no longer has unique values for the first movement speed stack, and Warpath movement speed stack bonus increased from 123% to 345. So essentially, at level, or his first stack would be a nice big movement speed increase. And then the other ones would be smaller increases, whereas now they've taken away that first stack, giving you a nice big movement chunk, and now you just gain more per stack. So essentially there's a higher cap value if you can get more stacks going, but you do have to ramp up instead of kind of starting at a higher point. So do you like that change?
Yes, I do. I think.
Sound so confident.
because it's a trade. I feel like
It is.
Bristle is a hero that hasn't been picked up a whole lot lately. Gets in there every once in a
Centaur's
while.
replaced him, let's be honest.
Centaur has replaced him. And I feel like the change to Warpath basically is pro him ramping up and getting out of control, and not so much about your comeback Bristle. So I feel like it makes him maybe more dependable if you're able to get some farm on him, but if he's going to be coming from behind, you might not get as much out of him. It's not like you need a full mana bar in order to see the effect of this, to be able to get up to the maximum, but I feel like items definitely are going to help you out to keep it sustained.
Yeah, I think it's, assuming he gets picked up again, I think it is, like you said, it's the way it should be. He's a hero that has zero problems, especially late in the game, spamming out his spells like crazy, so it will get to that point where he was before. I mean, yeah, your first one, you're not going to be quite as effective at hunting people down, but you'll get there only with a few more casts, and I think it'll be, in the long run, better for him. Broodmother, my last B. It's a sad day here, folks.
What a B to end on.
Oh, I know.
What a B. This B.
This B right here, let me tell you. They're getting ready to bring her back. They're trying. Spiderling's poison sting damage per second increased from 4 to 8, so doubled it. The spin... Which one is that? Is that the smallest or the middle one? I never know.
Ooh,
did I just put you on the spot?
I'll
I
do some
thought you
science.
knew that. Anyways.
do some science.
But either way, it's one of the little guys. Spin webs, I actually like this change a lot. Spin webs free pathing no longer deactivates when enemy has vision on Broodmother. So if you recall, up to this point, because I know a lot of you don't play Broodmother, I sure don't. But
He knows.
I know these things. Yeah, so if anyone had vision view, you couldn't go and have the walking through the trees and have all that awesomeness. But now that doesn't deactivate that way. How it does deactivate is it's disabled for 3 seconds when Broodmother takes damage, and it says this is similar, uses the same damage source rules as Blink Daggers, so not creep damage or tower damage. This is purely from, well, not purely, but hero, essentially like hero damaging, that kind of thing. So think of it like a Blink Dagger when you're trying to do the pathing. Oh, and then the last change, Insatiable Hunger Lifesteal increased by 20% across the board. Thoughts?
Spiderlings are the big ones.
Okay, I would have said the wrong one, so good to know.
There you go. So now we're all right.
Yes.
I think I like this.
I like it. Yeah.
But I don't like that I like it. I feel like it makes
Okay.
Broodmother stronger because you're not going to be like randomly caught out by there being flying vision and a sentry ward somewhere. And it really is going to be about people actually like catching you legit. That being said, I don't like anything that makes Broodmother stronger still. Maybe it was just all that bad experience at once when she was originally changed or what, but now she's even harder to 1v1. Damage over time from her spiders, I mean, it's seems negligible, but it is doubling the damage from it. So I think that the web change makes sense, but I don't like it. That's my final word.
Okay, I like it, period. Not that I like Broodmother either, believe me. But
Yeah.
I think this rule makes the most sense. I like that it follows the rules of Blink Dagger, because Blink Dagger, obviously, such a great item that's used all the time now. But it is, you can work around it, you can deal with it. And I like Broodmother being able to deal with it like this, where you just have to get some kind of damage. Just get Radiance on your supports. What do you have to do to keep him from, getting this movement? But I think it is ultimately one of the best ways, and we'll see how it pans out. They're obviously going to be now testing it with the whole player base and seeing if they like that adaptation. Try to bring her back. Also, 20% more lifesteal is awesome. So just even that much stronger. 100% the last rank of lifesteal. That's nuts. And she's already hitting like a truck.
Brr.
By the way, one of the bug fixes, the Insatiable Hunger was not proccing on the Lone Druid Bear either. So that bear was just like the shit. Now actually things work on it, believe it or not. So there you go. That's something to know.
Can I say that I didn't really appreciate all of these
I
things?
know, this is like, you were the Lone Drink King, and you had no idea how good your bear really was.
I was so excited about Lone Druid, the buff that he got this patch, until I came back and realized all of these little minor, not even really minor, but just all these things along the way that are like, screw you, bear, good luck.
Can we give the entangling root thing a pseudo chance, please? Because I feel like yours always proc on the first hit, so I don't know. Feels a little good right now. Anyways, all right, the bees are dealt with.
I wanted to see Centaur War Runner Hoofstomp mana cost increased from 85 up to 130 to just 130.
That's not going to change anything.
You love it. You love it.
I mean, it's good to nerf him, but
can't hate it.
You
love it.
Couldn't.
You're digging it.
I mean, you figure he has such a small mana pool at level 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to make that just 130 at all ranks is basically saying you're getting one stomp off early game, unless you get a lot of stats, which a lot of them don't generally for the off lane. So yeah, that actually is kind of significant that way. Obviously, the rest of his spells not really playing too much of a mana role. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at level 1, that's just about all of it. I mean, your starting mana is 195, and your ability now costs 130.
Whoops.
So, to make that first one count, I kind of like this, too, just because I think it's a little silly that Centaurs don't build stats. I think I've said this before. I feel like, I mean, Return is obviously not going to ever be, like, a major thing that you're going to consider as being a major part of why you pick the hero, but I do think it's silly that you have an ability that works directly with strength, and there's like no item that Centaurs ever build that has strength in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this change maybe makes Drums make a lot more sense on him, instead of just going like, I mean, you could still just go Blade Mail for some int and then the damage and the return damage, but having to build up your general stats a little bit more to be just as effective is something that I kind of like in general.
No, I think that's a good way to look at it too. I build my Centaurs with heart. I don't know about you, but
I mean that's the dream, right?
That is the dream.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff in between level 1 and heart that you kind of gotta.
Blade, Sheepstick, you know, the usual.
Maelstrom,
the usual.
Diffusal Blade.
Now, of course.
Of course. Chaos Knight. Phantasm now has a 50% chance to create one extra Lucas and one cast.
They just want every aspect of this guy to be random, don't they? Stats are going to randomly give you a unique set of stats every time you level it up.
Now it starts with a random amount of gold. Like, fine, I guess. The thing that I guess I like about this is I feel like the deadly thing about getting Manta on Chaos Knight is that you have the chance to just be able to surround somebody with Reality Rift. And now you're kind of have the potential to get that with Chaos Knight. Chaos Knight, I mean, there was even a game recently, I wish I could remember what it was, but there was an IO picked up early in the draft, and going into the second round of bans, the enemy team banned Tiny and Chaos Knight. I think it was Merlini that was like, why would you ban Chaos Knight? I know, it makes sense because it pairs with IO, but
no one's going to pick Chaos Knight.
Even if you did, like, why are you more scared of Chaos Knight when, you know, I don't remember what the other bands were off the top of my head, but there are heroes that I feel like I'm much more scared of than Chaos Knight, even with the IO combination.
Right. No, I think this is nice for him, for sure, because those things do full damage, so obviously an extra one is awesome, and you use him a lot of times for the split push as well. He pops that ulti late game, he can annihilate a lane within, you know, seconds if you leave him untouched. So just a 50% chance, pretty high chance to get that rolling through, but obviously it's a chance, so it's a chance to buff.
Yes. That's an interesting way to look at it, yeah. Chen, Penitence, cooldown reduced from 14 to 14, 13, 12, 11.
Gotta level it now, am I right?
Probably. You're probably
they're trying to make you want to.
Chen, I feel like, has not been so effective lately, so
no, he hasn't.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say on it, honestly, except that it's just, obviously, you're still going to level up your Test of Faith and, you know, possibly other... I just feel like you're still not going to go with Penitence over the other ones, but at least when you do put points in it, it's going to do a little more for you, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Give him more to do during the fight. I think that's ultimately what they're trying to do here.
That's true, yeah, and I do like that, because, again, yeah, he's having such a hard time, especially with Ancient Apparition being so popular, that I'm okay with giving him a couple of things to play with. Clinks, Deathpack cooldown reduced from 45 to 35. What's up, Clinks?
Yeah,
you digging it?
Deathpacks, I mean, seems good. Get that 35 seconds going is a really nice change. Obviously, Clinks is not in a lot of games, but he still does get picked up on the occasion. And Deathpack being such a really strong move, and it lasts 35 seconds at all ranks. So now, literally, its duration equals the cooldown at the last rank, and that's awesome.
Aghanim Scepter Clinks. You now have half the cooldown for Deathpack. What up? You're super strong. You're killing everybody.
God.
That would be hilarious. I don't want to see it, but that would be hilarious.
That would be real bad. People actually might build it. I don't know what to say about it.
It would be so bad. Please don't ever do that, Ice Frog. Don't
ignore
him.
That.
Yeah. I'm fine with 100% uptime. I mean, I think that makes sense. And even though it's 100% uptime, in reality, it's really not.
Yeah, you're not going to always have that ideal situation when it comes off to eat a mother... Because you don't want to eat a lane creep unless you have to. Like, you want to eat a jungle creep with it. So, yeah, the odds of it being completely useful are not all there. But it's nice to have that ability. So
Dazzle, Poison Touch. No, that's a D.
Oh! You just took the D from me.
I didn't mean to get on
Give me the D, Matt.
Tried to stay away from the D. But
let me have the D.
It was like I could barely notice your D there, so I...
Wow. It's rather short compared to the other ones, but...
It is a tiny D to start off with.
Enough with that. Dazzle, Poison Touch no longer causes a mini-stun. And what this says, though, this only removes the instant mini-stun at the start. The debuff will still stun the target when the poison sets in at level 4. Good.
I'm cool with this. Dazzle, super prevalent, super important meta hero. And, I feel like he does so much when you really, sit there and list it out. Oh, it can save someone from dying from almost every hero. Oh, it can heal a bajillion. And also being able to apply a major slow, when they had the duration increase, and also providing the mini stun can stop people from channeling or trying to TP out with your slow.
Yeah.
And, really, now that it doesn't provide that mini stun, you're going to be able to call some shenanigans before that 4-second stun sets in. So I think that's totally fair and totally reasonable, and I think is a good way to reel them in. And that, honestly, I feel like might be enough. I'm not saying that people are going to stop picking him because of this, but I feel like he might be pretty reasonable outside of now that this change has happened.
Yeah, he's still an insanely strong hero, so I don't see this as taking him out. But I think any of these heroes that are just getting picked up absurdly amounts should have some attention paid to them. So I'm glad that they took this route upon him. I think it was accurate. Disruptor. Kinetic field cooldown reduced from 14 in all ranks to now 14 through 11. So, feels like a Penitence buff. It is like the Penitence buff.
I'm also okay with this because while I feel like Disruptor definitely has his place and his abilities, and sometimes he feels really strong, I think in general he's just kind of like... so I'm totally okay with this. Over a high-level Disruptor, 3 seconds less seems legit and reasonable. And yeah, I'm on board with it.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Disruptor's not quite picked a lot, so I don't know why, honestly. He should be getting picked more, in my opinion. That Og's buff, just so freaking strong. But, yeah, it's a nice little change for him. Doom. Doom damage no longer ignores magic shields, like Pipe of Insight. So, that makes sense to me.
Seems reasonable. Yeah.
I don't know why it was ignoring it before. I mean, I know Doom just makes everyone...
Makes life suck.
Just makes life suck, exactly. That's a great way to put it. But, yeah, I don't think it should ignore a mechanic like that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And I feel like there has to be something that can try to help you cope with the Doom. I mean...
It is Doom, though. I mean, you're doomed. Shouldn't you be feeling the effects of Doom? I don't know. I guess there's only so much.
Yeah. But I'm okay with it, and I feel like this is another example of a change that is like a very slight prod to get a hero into a good place. Not that he's all over the place in every draft, but fine.
Draw Ranger Gust knockback duration increased from 0.2 to 0.5, so extra 0.3 seconds there on the knockback. That's kind of nice.
I think it's a good change. I mean, a little bit of a crowd control effect on top of the silence. I think that's, totally reasonable. And, even with these changes, you really only see Drow for abusing the Visage birds, which I feel like is not what you want at all. That you're just using it to abuse another hero's really good ability. So when you're still just, I think clearly some changes have to be made. And I think that the new Gust is a good target for changes.
Right. All right, done with the D.
On to the E. We can feel ourselves on the E.
Great.
I'm done. Earth Spirit, Stone Remnant recharge time reduced from 35 to 30. What Earth Spirit buff?
Actually, did that just change it? Like, wasn't it 30 originally and they nerfed it? And now they're like, wait, let's reel that back in a second here.
And then I think is when they made all the changes to the Wombo combo.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're like, all right, we'll give you something. That's fine. You can.
No one likes Earth Spirit anymore, so maybe we should. It increased from 25 to 35 in 6.8, so now they're bringing it back to 30. They're compromising here, essentially.
I like it. I haven't even seen Earth Spirit in forever, so I'll be honest
Thank
with you.
God. No more in pubs, please. That hero is way too nasty and annoying.
Oh, now I kind of want to see him because I'm like, wait, was it really that bad? Because I was like, yes, when it happened, but that was out of that was out of anger and hatred, not really from a
logical standpoint.
Yeah, that wasn't from an unbiased perspective. So,
Fair enough.
Earthshaker, creeps no longer try to path around fissure; they will wait for it to disappear. Echo Slam no longer ignores units that are invisible or in the fog of war.
Interesting that it ignored invisible units.
It
clearly damaged them. So is this just meaning like the waves? It had to have. Haven't you killed a Ricky when you just Echo Slam next to him no matter what? Pretty sure it still hit him. I think this is referring to the waves that shoot out.
Maybe the stun hit him, but the slam damage didn't.
Boy, science may need to be done again. But either way, it's obviously a positive thing for Earthshaker there.
I think so. Again, I think when you have a hero that's largely used for abuse of an ability, that's sad, and that you need to fix him. And the creep thing is totally fine and reasonable. I like it a lot. And it still, I feel like, gives you if you want to, you can slow down the creep wave with Earthshaker, but you're not, like, running him through a labyrinth, like Lemmings trying to get him to the correct door. It's just they are like, well, screw this, time to take a break. I
guess it's to prevent the Ancient pulling, I suppose, from middle lane.
Yep.
That's primarily it. But
yeah, and even on Dire side, you can do it in the bottom lane. So
okay.
Use some tree shenanigans. You can make it happen.
But it still at least does something. So it's not like
exactly.
it's like your creeps now gain path. You can path through it.
They just climb over it. They're like, YOLO, I don't care. I'm getting to that river.
Right.
Elder Titan. Echo Stomp mana cost reduced from 100 scaling up to 145, just to 100. Echo Stomp physical and magical damage increased from 80 to 95 each scaling. Again, who could have foreseen Elder Titan buffs?
Right.
I'm fine with it. It gets Stomp. Of all the things, it's Stomp, which is, I guess if you're going to buff Elder Titan, that's where it has to happen.
Well, you don't need to buff the other two abilities. God knows. Those are strong enough.
So, I'm cool with it.
Yeah. I mean, they're not major, but they're cool. They're good. They're positive.
And again, when you consider that Centaur Warrunner has pretty much replaced every other offlaner, it feels like, trying to get some of these other ones a little bit more interesting is fine. And, it's to like his crowd control component, which is really, when you, I guess, compare Centaur and Elder Titan, that's kind of what you're missing out a lot on, because, Centaur Warrunner can still do a ton of damage, but then also has the huge crowd control, so now making Echo Stomp at least a little bit more useful, a little bit more effective is fine.
Right. I agree.
Ember Spirit. Searing Change duration. Just give you some time to throw up your hands. Reduced from 2233 at the ranks to 1223. And the people rejoice. Ember Spirit buffs. Total. The damage stays the same, by the way. And across the board as you rank it up, but I am totally cool with this.
Keep going.
Oh, there's another one too.
Oh,
Sleight
yeah.
of Fist bonus damage reduced from 30 scaling up to 120 to 20 scaling up to 80.
Yeah. Both of these are pretty significant, in my opinion.
Broken?
Ember Spirit was feeling broken.
No. I mean, has he been like?
Oh, is
snapped?
he undone? Oh, yes. Ooh, that's a good question. That's actually a really good question. Yeah, obviously it's not like he could never play again, but I think this could be enough to definitely make him just a consideration instead of like I always want to pick him kind of hero now. I don't know. I think the chains one was a very needed change and a good change because they've just been, you see that CC last so long. Even at the first rank at 2 seconds, and it gets on the third rank you're at 3 already. I mean, this is like absurd. It's a long time, and it does a ton of damage, mind you. Now, of course, the damage does carry over, but still, I think it's nice to make it not as heavy of a CC early on. And then the Sleight of Fist bonus damage. I mean, it's not a ton, but when you factor in the fact that cooldown gets so low at the last rank, 40 bonus damage can be a large consideration.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that you can't get one or the other. You can't max the Flame Guard and then either Searing Chains or Sleight of Fist and really come out at, I feel like, almost the same place. I mean, clearly you're getting benefits from leveling one versus the other, but now it's like, okay, do I need the control or do I need the damage? And it's not so much, well, I'll get a decent amount of control out of 1 point in Searing Chains, and I can just get all the damage out of Sleight of Fists,
Right. Flame Guard has been like getting ignored. It's always been like in recent times of pro games they've been pretty much consistently maxing Searing Chains and Sleight of Fist because of the CC and the quick Sleight of Fist damage and that amazing cooldown reduction. So Flame Guard was kind of thrown aside, but this may give a lot of incentive to start maxing that over the other abilities, possibly.
I mean, I could see it doing the other thing too. Now that especially with the Searing Chains, now that you have to put more points into it earlier on to get the control out of it, I could see you arguing the other way too. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it impacts them. I really do think though that might be enough to make him a lot less attractive as a pick.
I agree.
So we'll see. Enchantress Untouchable slow duration increased from 3 to 4. Cool.
All right.
Enigma Midnight Pulse Rave effects increased from 400 to 600.
This is big. This isn't like bring Enigma back in the game big, but this is. I saw on Reddit someone posted all these pictures of basically groups of trees in different terrain that now that 600 completely annihilates. It's massive. It is like a huge amount of area, and you have to remember that the Midnight Pulse does destroy trees. So this could be really important for vision during fights. I think it's a really nice buff, especially considering Midnight Pulse is like the redheaded stepchild of his abilities. It's very ignored, not cared about at all. Even when they added it to the Aghanim Scepter, like, you want to, but it was like, no, I don't. And now they actually... at least one rank seems really nice to have for that 600 radius of destroying terrain or trees and giving that vision.
I think it makes sense anyway because this is such a difficult
spell to use.
Effectively, because you by the time you cast it, then maybe let's say you're able to get a black hole off and catch. Some people might have moved out of the radius; they might get dragged back into it. But yeah, I mean, it is max life lost per second, but how many people are you hitting with this for how long?
Right.
Nominal amounts. So I'm cool with increasing the area to actually make it sort of a factor. Now, I feel like, are you going to level it? I mean, like you said, maybe 1 point is worth it if you have a really good reason to kill trees, but you're still looking for points in Malphus and Demonic Conversion.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, no. You're not going to be maxing that over the others, but I think it's just a nice change.
And on the F, you...
the 1F. 1F was given today, and it was Faceless Void.
One single one.
Base agility increased from 21 to 23, so it gained 2, and then the turn rate improved from 0.5 to 1. So he gained basically 2 base damage, and of course the agility gives the other benefits. So he's hitting harder at level 1, and the turn rate increase that helps any hero, frankly. If you can turn faster, obviously you can, change targets or do what you need to do better. So, buffing Faceless, I'm all about that.
And that's a dramatic increase, too, in his turn rate.
Yeah, it is.
So, now, turning might not be the slowest part of his movement in his ultimate.
Well, I mean,
I guess
moving's got to be the fastest, so I guess it has to be. But now it's at least improved, which is nice.
Yeah, and we saw some beautiful execution of Faceless Void burning. Yes, so I don't mind seeing him because clearly, I mean, he has a place where he can be used really well, but I feel like that's the one time you've seen him maybe in the last week. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Gyrocopter homing missile now hits invisible units.
Awesome.
That's pretty slick. Digging it. Homing missile hits required to destroy increase from 3 to 3,345. What is up?
Okay. People are gonna forget that until this becomes a regular thing because you're like, all right, got the third hit for you. Oh, wait, why is it still alive? Now, granted, in the current state, you do not see homing missile maxing in any capacity at all. In fact, it's usually maybe 1 point, just for a CC purpose. But obviously, of the 4 abilities, it does seem rather lackluster. But I do like that it hits invisible units. That's pretty sweet.
I also like that parts of this hero, other than flat cannon and, well, really just that this ability, is getting touched, because the other ones seem really crucial to his success in a big way, to the point that minute changes to them really seem to have a big impact.
Yeah.
And the ultimate, I feel like, awesome. Rocket Barrage still does a bajillion damage. So I feel like Homing Missile is a really good place to look. I really enjoy that Homing Missile can't be disjointed by invisibility, because heroes like Riki, who are just going to be fading into invis while this thing is in the air, I feel like that's kind of strong. Not that you're seeing Rikis everywhere, but I just really like that change. And I'm just going to throw it out there, Jay. MYM versus Dog in the Summit. Not that it was for the $1 million Game 5, but support Gyrocopter was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Not days ago. So, I'm not saying you're going to see support gyros all the time, but I wouldn't mind seeing Gyrocopter almost like a Naga, where you could see both ways going with the hero's usage. Although I feel like you're going to have to see a lot more buffs to Homing Missile if you're going to expect to see him in that kind of capacity, but
yeah,
kind of neat.
No, it is. It's still a pretty interesting idea. And against Maranol, too. You factor that in, that would help as well.
Yeah.
But I think as a carry gyro, you're still going to see it not a priority. But like you said, who knows until it's actually tested out in the wild. So, speaking of wild, Huskar, he's pretty wild, man.
Okay.
Troll man.
I'll buy it.
Burning Spears is no longer a unique attack modifier. Yep, chef. I don't know. It's just alright, Burning Spears is pretty dang annoying, especially early on in the game. But, now he's going to be able to use that while lifestealing. That seems rather good to me.
Ancient Apparition's still balling, so, okay, fine. I feel like also... I mean, this is a buff, and unfortunately, it's a buff that is going to impact your and my game more than a professional level game.
Oh yeah,
and probably even more so to people in lower skill than us, and that is a little disheartening. But again, it's hard to argue against a buff for a hero that is never getting picked up competitively.
right.
I mean, that just tells you that there are counters, there are ways to deal with it, and you really just need to look for those. And you can now burn and lifesteal, but maybe this also brings up the sort of the counters of Necrophos and Axe that become maybe more prevalent because this hero isn't. Honestly, there are a lot of relationships in this patch where I feel like that's a thing where a buff that seems rather strong to a hero almost feels so strong that it makes other heroes better because they are equipped to deal with that change. And I think this is a good example of this. And, you might have to start looking at some of those heroes that you wouldn't otherwise be looking at just because of this Huskar threat.
No, I completely agree. I think it's It's interesting. I'm not thrilled with it though. I really am not. I don't think that needs to be removed as a unique attack modifier, but we'll see how it plays out in the long run. You know.
We're gonna hate it, but
Oh yeah. But I'm curious if it really makes any impact at all in the pro scene. I highly doubt it, but you never know.
Now I'm gonna do a thing here.
Okay.
I'm gonna break the alphabet. I'm gonna take the alphabet. I'm gonna hold it in my little hand.
Would.
I'm gonna stroke it. I'm gonna lull it into a false sense of security. I'm just gonna snap it in half. Because there's a very similar change to our buddy Ursa, where Fury Swipes is no longer a unique attack modifier. And you had already seen this, but Joe was kind enough to ruin my life earlier by showing me the level 3 Roshan attempt by Ursa. Now, it's a nail biter. If you want to watch a little bit of drama, you want to be on the edge of your seat. It gets close. But the fact that Ursa can have Stout Shield and the Lifesteal Mask and Conceal Roshan, this is a real
Morbid
thing.
Mask, yeah.
Morbid Mask. Pardon my lack of
That's okay.
name. I hate this.
1,200 gold. That's all you need.
Now, Ursa, rarely used in conjunction really only with IO. Level 3 Ursa. The other thing, too, is that now you can't see through smoked targets without actually being there to break it, like the sentry wards aren't helping you out. That also kind of sucks, and now you're just actually physically going to have to keep eyes on the Roshan pit. Now, I will say, again, to our buddies all the way down the Z, the change to Zeus actually kind of makes him kind of a nice idea to deal with this Ursa and being able to scout now with the Thunderbolt, which we'll get into a little later. But I don't know. What do you think? How much do you hate this? Much like how much you love the Abaddon change. How much
Probably
do you hate
my
this
least favorite change in the whole patch.
Well, it's not that bad for me.
It is that bad for me. I think Ursa did not need it at all. I feel like he was completely balanced and happy. Okay, because a hero's not picked all the time pro doesn't necessarily mean that his either kit's too weak or there's something so off about him. It's just really tastes in the meta, and things change on almost a monthly basis, it seems, with popularity. It's really just one team showing that something works, and every other team's like, oh, okay, let's try that. Like the Naga mid thing, just all of a sudden became this super popular idea. It's not like Naga got all these big changes all of a sudden. It's just because someone tried an idea, and it really worked well, and then everyone started doing it. So I don't think Ursa, I feel like it was fine to let him get Vlad's to get his lifesteal to do everything he needed to do. And I mean, this isn't dramatic, but it could be. I mean, he could still turn that Morbid Mask into Vlad's and now go like Desolator, or who knows what he's going to end up going with Orb effects. But the point is that he's going to be hitting like a truck and gain all the benefits of the Orb effect items that he wasn't able to do before.
Or, I mean, even just like the amount of Maelstrom procs you have the potential to proc off of Overpower. I mean, I think the other ones are much more attractive. But, the other thing, too, is that with a percentage of current life added to his damage, he's now going to have a higher percentage of health more often. Mm-hmm. So, that kind of sucks. I feel like Satanic is going to be pretty huge on him. It's going to be super hard to take him down. And I kind of agree with you in that I'm okay with him being buffed, but I feel like it should be more towards things like Enrage than his ability to kill Roshan, which is probably one of the strongest in the game as it is.
Yep.
So the fact they can do it at level 3, I feel like, is a little crazy. I will say, if I'm trying to justify it and not hate it a lot, I feel like it makes mobile support heroes that much more important, and support heroes with a large range of influence more important. And we'll get to Skywrath Mage eventually, but looking for a hero that can sort of exert his presence from far away and be quick enough to move around to look for things like Ursa's running into the pit, I feel like is really something you're going to have to consider more drafting against him.
Agreed.
But the other thing is, too, is he's going to be 5th pick, like every time he's picked up. So how easy is it going to be for you to adjust to a level 3 Roshan threat? That's kind of... And this is, mind you, this is level 3 Roshan attempt with just the Morbid Mask and a Stout Shield. This isn't with a Tango. This isn't with a branch. This is just these 2 items, and you know that he's going to have more than that going into the pit. He probably won't be exactly level 3 either, but it's still kind of weird. I don't know.
The point is he doesn't need Vlads. So
yeah,
that's pretty scary. Yeah, pre-Vlads is pretty scary, so we'll see how that plays out too. But I just honestly thought it was unnecessary. But apparently they want to play with it, so they want to play with it. So let them play on. Back on track though. Invoker's Ghost Walk slow no longer affects the magic immune enemies, which makes sense to me. And the EMP delay increased from 2.6 to 2.9, so they've nerfed EMP again slightly. And the thing is, Invoker in this day and age is Quas-Exort, like 95% of the time. So EMP nerf, yeah, it sucks, but I don't think that's such a big deal, either of those changes.
Not saying that it's a big enough change to matter, but also being able to purge people out of the tornado is kind of interesting, because, again, it's so barely noticeable, but it is something against a Wex Invoker. So, yeah, the fact that these things are happening to a largely Quas-Exort meta is kind of interesting.
Are they just targetable when they're floating around the air, then?
I
guess. That's so weird.
Or you have to target the base of the tornado. I haven't gotten to try it, but...
Start from the base and work your way up the tornado. Okay.
You could say at the bottom. You could say that you started from the bottom, and now you're here.
You're here.
And brought back down to the bottom with the purge. But anyway, Jakiro. Here goes the Aghanim's improvements. Dual Breath range increased by 50. Liquid Fire level 4 cooldown reduced from 5 to 4. Aghanim Scepter Macropyre duration increased from 7 to 14.
Ooh.
And the Aghanim Scepter Macropyre range increased from 1350 to 1800. Now, I do know the sort of pictures that you're talking about and the differences of range, and it was up on Cyborg Matt's blog as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little silly. The difference in range. And the duration, I really like this for a couple of reasons. One, because Jakiro doesn't get used, and I'm totally fine with him getting buffed. Also, because this is really the only thing that I see as being like a great way to try to deal with dire Roshan advantage. Being able to throw out this crazy Macropyre from such a long range. Because really, if you have to flee out of the pit, I guess you're still going to high ground. So it's still fine, right? But at least you're not able to concentrate in on top of this Macropyre, because it's really going to be over such a long duration, over such a large area, that it's not something that you can ignore. So that's my favorite part of these buffs, even though I feel like really every single one is pretty nice. But I guess similar to what we were talking about earlier, these support heroes and their Aghanim Scepters, how are they affording this?
Yep. That's always been the kind of large issue with these AUG upgrades or supports is, right, the affordability slash room to get it in your build. Jakiro, another one of those heroes where mech seems to just be built on him, or pipe even, these support, or even force staff. You know, you see a lot of these utility items that come out. And AUG upgrading this one is not like even like Abaddon's where it gives you more utility. This one is just purely just a stronger version of his ultimate, which, yeah, that's good. But it doesn't feel like it's like, is that really what we need? Do we need it to be a farther range and a longer duration? I mean, maybe if you're turtling, it can feel essential to have a 14-second duration Macropyre sing in the lane, but, you know, at the same token, I feel like supports, most of the time, would rather just get utility. You know, Force Staff, Blink, Mech, Pipe. It's like drums, whatever. Things that are going to help out your team in the grand scheme of things. So, I don't know. I like it a lot. And like you said, giving buffs to Jakiro seems like a good idea because he's just really out of the loop at this point. He got all those nerfs, and he's been feeling it. But I don't know. I actually like the dual breath one maybe the best, as minor as it is. I like giving that 50 more range. It's 500 now. So to get that up to 550... you know, so many times when you cast that spell, it almost seems like it's like, oh, you're just out of range of it or something. Like, giving that 50 really could make a decent difference with that spell.
Yeah, it does have that like huge cast time too associated with it. So I think the extra range is totally warranted. I mean, the other way that you can think about the improvement to the Aghanim Scepter on the Ultimate is that if you're looking to push a tower and you want to ensure that they're not able to put up as stable a defense, I mean, 14 seconds for half the lane that they can't stand in or that they're going to have to pay for in order to stand in, that's pretty dramatic. And I guess maybe if there's a super push strat that you're able to somehow put together this much money and you really want to stop them from being able to stand and fight in a particular area, all right, I guess. If you want to throw your money that way, if you have somebody else picking up your mech, maybe we're going back to the olden days of having your mid character pick up the mech, or you have your offlaner get it, then maybe your 4 Jakiro can make this happen, but I don't know. You know, it's still something that's completely blocked by magic immunity, so you can still just BKB and walk through it, even though that, I guess, some of the duration would still be effective. I don't know. Wait, you read that, right? Or did I? I read that. Oh God, the fates are working against me here. No, go ahead and read. Go ahead and read the next one, just so I can hate my life. If you can do that,
Juggernaut.
For me a little bit.
Base attack time improved from 1.6, wait for it, to 1.5.
Whoop-de-doo. So Keeper of the Light. Oh.
Keeper of the Light. Yeah. Did anything happen to this hero?
I've never hated something more in life.
Wow, in life.
As a general statement.
That's a statement.
I mean...
That's really pathetic. I mean...
Black Plague, murder... against this, really...
It's hard to weigh.
How do they compare? Added Aghanim Scepter, okay. Provides permanent spirit form. Okay, that seems cool. Additionally, the following effects are active during the day. Keeper of the Light gains unobstructed vision, and Illuminate heals allies for 75% of the damage values.
Wait, what do you not like about this?
It seems fair and reasonable. Let me tell you what I do actually like about this.
Okay.
Sort of going on what we were mentioning earlier about a lot of these changes, sort of indirectly making other heroes
I knew you were going to say this.
Is that Night Stalker now is a hard counter to a hero again.
Sure is.
He sort of was to the way that Treant Protector used to work, and the way that his AoE, regen, the towers and stuff didn't work at nighttime. Now, I feel like you can sort of look at a Night Stalker pickup just to sort of counter out this potential Aghanim Scepter to be totally reasonable. The thing that I find most difficult to accept about this is that, A, it's unobstructed vision, which is just kind of silly in the first place.
Night Stalker, he has to get an Aghanim's for that. Oh, wait. I lied. Kodal does too. But, to be fair, an Aghanim's on the Kodal seems very reasonable, whereas an Aghanim's on Night Stalker is not as reasonable.
And here's the thing, even if you just look at the farming capability of Keeper of the Light and you go, wow, that's reasonable, he could totally get an Aghanim Scepter.
Yep.
You can totally justify skipping a mech almost. I mean, you're losing out. You're losing out on armor. You're losing out on passive regeneration. So it's not a one-to-one thing. But the fact that you're getting unobstructed vision too during the day, makes this seem just ridiculous. And a friend of the show, Geno Beam, is a big fan of Kodal, and I want to see him play it. I'd like to see it. I'm sure it just sounds a lot worse and feels a lot worse in my heart than it actually is in the game, but man, that is rough. And now it's got a silencer on the end of it when you're firing it from the trees. Thanks, audio changes.
Well, that was the blinding light, but yeah. But still, the fact that you can skip mech just because of the heal you gain from this, and then you can build mech right after. I mean, it's not like it's hard, as we said. Kodal is one of those supports that has zero issues farming and any stage of the... Well, I mean, obviously in the first few levels it's hard for anyone. But, he can stack creep waves and just illuminate a couple times. Bam, got tons of gold. And he doesn't even have to steal from his, his one roll, his one carry. He can just get his own farm in the jungle, be perfectly happy, content, and still feed mana to that guy go around gank. He can do so many things. And then Perma Spirit Form, that part is really cool. That is the thing that I really like about it, because, let's be honest,
Like is a strong word.
I think of all the changes in there, I think that's the best one. Because, obviously you want him to be in that Spirit Form, and then the last rank, it's almost permanent at that point anyways. Because the cooldown and duration are almost synced up. But now he just doesn't have to worry about it, can get the blinding lights and the teleports throughout the game once you get it, as well as the channeled illuminates. I think it's all really nice thing. But the heal, we have to think not just like, oh, I'm healing my ally for 75% of my 500 illuminate. You're also healing Lycan Wolves, Necro units, and Enchantress creeps. I mean, you're healing that huge wave line for almost 400 health. I mean, that every few seconds. That part is a. Oh, and while you're healing, you're doing 500 damage to anyone that's in that wave. So that's kind of a big shift in momentum there.
It's much like Bane, where
it's the Bane thing on the biggest scale of the universe.
Where the health swing is really what's outrageous. And I mean, Blinding Light on a 12-second cooldown when you're level 16, I mean, yeah, you're a support. What are the odds of you getting that high level super quick? But when it lasts for 5 seconds and is on a 12-second cooldown, that's a lot of blind. So Night Stalker, buddy, get in there in silence and tear this guy apart so that we don't have to deal with that nonsense. So
here's where I was saying about the Cant mode thing. This guy is going to be totally in the drafting pool.
Welcome to viability.
We're totally going to see Kodal get picked up here. Yeah, he's totally making his way into the scene. I can't imagine him not. Pushing with Necrobooks has still become a popular thing, especially with Invokers and whatnot. So it's not like there's going to be a lineup where you don't really want him that much, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, and
he does lack hard CC, but he makes up for it with so many other ways that it's not such a big deal.
Even with the Slatter, where Alliance was picking, they had EGM drafting, and he actually picked up Keeper of the Light, so he was kind of just like feeling it still, even though that's not something that's been super popular of late. But at the end of the day, this is just an Aghanim Scepter upgrade, so really the way that the hero functions early on is going to be pretty much the same. But man, stack that jungle to get this Aghanim Scepter. That's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on though, before we just vent in a huge
before I start
ball
crying.
Of rage. Yeah,
because no one wants to see that on camera.
No.
You're next.
Oh.
Actually, I'd read Kodal. So it's...
Sure.
Oh, it's the case.
It's
That's
case.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kunkka, torrent area of effect increased from 215 to 225. OP. X marks the spot can now last twice as long on allied heroes. Ghost ship effects allied buff duration increased from 8 to 10 seconds. And add Ghost ship AoE indicator for all allies.
Yeah, all good changes across the board there.
Our good friend Orange, or Bunnies as he used to be in a past life, mentioned to me the shenanigans that are going to ensue from X marks the spot lasting twice as long on allies and being able to go back to base and get items and return right back to the fight. That's kind of cool. I mean, that's it seems a little weird, but I guess other heroes can still do the same thing. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of reasonable. I mean, like, Kunkka, if you can hit everything, is super strong, I feel like. So, it really is just the skill cap, I guess, where you almost have to factor in the potential to miss things to try and argue that a hero might need to be balanced. But I feel like if you're able to land stuff, he's really strong, and I don't know.
That is kind of how the hero works, yeah.
Yeah, and with X marks the spot, being able to help you line up the torrents pretty easily, do you think he needed all this?
Kind of. I mean, he's obviously not the strongest mid out there, and a lot of times he'd be used to kind of like be against OD or someone in mid who was kind of a nuisance to deal with, but none of these are enormous change. 10 10 area for the torrent, not a big deal. Ghost ship buff, that actually is kind of nice. 2 more seconds that buff is so nice to have in your team fight to put off that damage that I think it's just going to be a benefit. And then the AoE indicator is going to help people coordinate supremely better. So that way you're like, oh, because you see the X right now, but you're like, okay, but what's that going to do necessarily? Like, that's the focal point. How big is this necessarily? So it's kind of nice to match that all up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is nice to actually be able to have a perception of the size of Ghost Ship. And I guess, the torrent area of effect is kind of small. Really, I guess the biggest thing you're seeing here is the X mark at the spot on allied heroes. And,
right.
I think there are definitely going to be ways to take advantage of that. And I hope that the teams that really want to use the Kunkka are able to maximize that efficiency. But I'm curious to see what people are going to be able to do with that. I think that's definitely a sort of finesse buff. And I'm curious to see what teams are able to use it the best.
Legion Commander. Overwhelming odds bonus damage per hero is increased. 14 to 20, now 20 to 65. Per creep is the same, though. The area of effect increased from 315 to 330. And the base damage rescaled from 50 to 200, now 60 to 180. Moment of Courage now uses also the pseudo-random chance that Axe gained from this. So, essentially, turning overwhelming odds from a just general nuke to now really benefiting from hitting multiple heroes. What do you think?
I like it a lot because this tries to steer people away from hiding in the jungle until you have Shadow Blade, Blink Dagger, Armlet, whatever items you're using to jump on people and blow them up. Yeah, I understand why you would be against coming out of the jungle as a Legion Commander. I've kind of always liked just being able to jump out, lay down a big AoE nuke, but now you can see that the damage is actually really decently affected by hitting heroes with it. And not that I even still see that many Legion Commanders in my pub games. I just feel like that's a totally reasonable thing, because really I feel like most people do think, well, I can't hold anybody in place or really affect heroes in the way that my kit seems to work with the duel until I have that ability. But really, I feel like this is now, okay, well, there's Crystal Maiden, so they can give me the control, and I'll go in there and drop some damage. I also really like the Moment of Courage thing, because that thing is like the shadiest buff that either procs forever in half of a second or never procs, and it always seems to be the first one.
That's what I'm saying. So Pseudo-Ram Chance hopefully going to smooth out these heroes who gained it this patch. I think it's going to be an all-around, some people will complain about, be like, oh, I normally get my streak and kill people, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it will make the hero better to play, I should say. Yeah.
I think, again, on top of the Axe thing, too, it's just, do you want a hero? I mean, we don't know the impact of Legion Commander in the professional scene, but, really, do you ever want to put your money on a hero that has a huge potential to swing one way or the other? And I feel like most of the time... Yeah.
One of the only ones, though, perchance, with his Phantom Assassin. Anyways, Leshrac, Lightning Storm now slows his target by 75% for a half a second.
Love it.
Yeah, they just buffed that spell in a recent patch, so they made it lower cooldown, a little bit less damage, but so now they're really giving it yet another buff, giving it utility besides just bouncing around. So, yeah, so why do you love that?
Just because it makes Split Earth a little bit easier to hit, and I feel like you can sort of feel better about putting points to Lightning Storm, because even still, low cooldown, okay, cool. It's still just a nuke that might help counter push, or, just might help me counter push. So do I really want to invest in it? Do I really want to put points into this extra thing to spend money on? Well, I think now that it actually gives you a very tiny bit of utility, I feel like that utility is really, it's like just for Leshrac. It's just so, hey, Split Earth's a lot easier for you to hit. You don't have to sort of ramp up the radius. I think it's a little bit friendlier towards people that don't play the hero a lot, just because you might not be able to hit those smaller radius Split Earths. But I just think it's a very small but effective change that makes the hero a little bit more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of the Lightning Storm Leshrac. I actually played the Leshrac game today, but of course it was support, and I ended up still going the Split Earth Diabolic Edict build because that is just the easiest way to go about the hero. But this kind of maybe starts helping the mid Leshrac out, because the mid Leshrac
What are
generally.
you doing?
Oh, I'm going on a tangent here. The mid Leshrac loves the Lightning Storm build. That is the way you harass really effectively and from a good range. And you can push the tower with Edict eventually. But I just think it's a good way. But, you can also just get 1 point Lightning Storm, and now it has utility. It still can be really effective with just 1 point. So, yeah, I think it was a great addition to him, making him that much better. And he's kind of not been that popular as of late. So maybe this could be another factor that helps bring him back in.
I feel like, too, that, it's just one of those heroes that really requires a setup, and I feel like it's hard to justify setting up a support. Hey, we need to pick up CC so that our CC works. What? What? How is this working? And yeah, he is one of the supports that can sort of transition to being a semi-carry in, like, the long run, if you're able to get, like, your Ognims or your BKB or Bloodstone up. But like you said, I think even the 1 point seems reasonable. I mean, this hero, every one of his abilities, except for his ultimate, scales up in the mana cost. So, keeping that cheap while maxing everything else, I think makes a lot of sense, and I'm fine with that. I like it a lot.
Lichy.
You have so many L's.
Lichy.
So many L's.
So many L's today. Frost Armor can now be cast on buildings. Holy moly. And Ognim Scepter Chain Frost no longer has a bounce limit.
Our buddy Ali, I believe, was the one that mentioned that how many times you really see Ognim Scepter bounce more than 9 times. That's fair. I feel like those times are, though, when you have a Chen, so poor guy, when you happen to have a lot of creeps and minions around, a lot of illusions. Sometimes, I feel like it's rare these days that you can see the whole Lich Scepter ultimate get soaked up by things that aren't heroes, but I mean, this really is just like everything needs to stop, and we need to figure out a way to make this stop being a thing. Almost sort of like the Macropyre thing, I think, to a certain degree, because it's like it's something you have to deal with. It's something you can't necessarily just try to ignore and work around. You almost sort of have to directly address it when it happens. And the Frost Armor, I really like, buffed offlane Lich. And I think it's just neat that there are more abilities that are working in conjunction with towers, because really currently it's Treant Protector and eventually Arc Warden, and that's all I'm coming up with.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that they're adding these mechanics, these heroes that interact with buildings. And I kind of also like this because as you sacrifice, you're sacrificing your creeps. You're obviously letting the lane push towards your base. So now you have a way to help defend your base. Cause like, oh yeah, sorry about that tower. Here, let me give you a hand. And you have to factor in that Frost Armor, or the Ice Armor, excuse me, is slowing. It gives the bonus armor, but also slows move and attack speed. So 30% melee. To 15% range move speed, 20%. The attack speed slow, just in general, like let's say you're turtling your base. That's a big slow, And the fact that obviously a lot of heroes are trying to focus that tower down is going to be pretty dramatic for it, I think. Imagine Lich Treant. How are you gonna break that base? It's gonna be quite a challenge.
That,
probably the OP Bearcat, because it probably ignores all rules of anything, but normal
OP Bear no more. Rest in peace, Bear. We haven't even gotten there yet.
Rip Bear. Yeah.
Rip Bear. Yeah, and I think especially when you consider it doesn't happen so much anymore, I feel like, because anti-mage isn't really a thing, but still Luna does it plenty. Of just like popping mana style, sending your illusions in at the tower, and that being a reasonable way to siege a base, which doesn't seem right. And I feel like that's an answer for that sort of thing, because you're increasing the armor by a dramatic amount, which is going to hurt the amount of damage the illusions are doing to it, and then it's slowing the attack speed. So I really like that. I definitely think it's a nice buff. I mean, I don't know, Lich was like first ban material not all that long ago, so I'm wondering how high up
I
in
just
the
think
priority
the
it gets
Og
placed.
buff was just pretty much unnecessary. But people have made already silly videos about like lining up all these creatures and just letting it bounce around for infinite time. And then they're like, I think Bonk was saying something along the lines of, "Hey, let the Lich throw the ult towards the Ancients, and then when anyone ever walks by it, it'll bounce to them and like slow them down." I'm like, this sounds so ridiculous, but it almost already felt like unlimited. Let's be honest. 10 bounces is quite a lot. So, like you said, if your team is having that many issues separating before 10 bounces happened, then, maybe you deserve it. Maybe you deserve to get hit by the more than 10. I don't know.
Yeah, and, in the real world, like the number of times that you maybe see Lich getting Aghanims is... I mean, I've seen it in competitive play. I'm not going to say it never happens, but... I don't know. I think maybe a little unnecessary, but still, it's definitely now something that you have to directly address, and that could be super disruptive to a team fight depending on where it breaks out. So, I'll be curious to see the impact.
Lena, the Lady of Fire. Attack range increase from 650 to 670. Nice. Even more harassed. Didn't she just gain, like...
A lot.
5 attack rate? Was it 25?
It was more than 5. It was more than 5.
I'll look up those stats as I continue. But yeah, so now she's at 670, which is more than your average bear. That's
more than everyone.
More
still.
than she's just a beast. Let's be honest. And the other thing is her Aghanim Sept upgrade damage now goes through magic immunity. The damage can still be reduced by normal spell resistance, however. So essentially, getting Aghanims does not prevent you from someone getting a BKB and saying, "Sorry, Lena, next fight maybe you'll help out."
Yeah, I like both of these things. I think Lena, still suffers from not necessarily having an itch, and I think this might give her one, really. You're talking about the attack range, 6, 7, 8, it was 625 to 635, 7, 9, 635 to 650, and now we're seeing an increase again. Still longest base attack range in the game. So definitely still has that going for her, but now the ability to sort of punch through BKB, really nice. I mean, you're getting an Aghanim Scepter, you're also getting increased damage and range, and this spell is on a 50-second cooldown at rank 3, so kind of a nice, readily available way to sort of deal with late-game carries that are going to go for the BKB. Now there's really, a straight-up magic answer to BKB, whereas before, I guess the only thing that you really had to sort of punish it was the Abyssal Blade, so this seems like a really nice change to make her a unique hero that doesn't seem overpowered, because, I mean, again, when are you going to get an Aghanim Scepter? This is a hero that can farm pretty well for support, but, again, can you really shirk your other responsibilities? I think the answer to that is yes, if the situation is so demanding that you need to be able to punch through magic immunity, but on the whole, no.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that, but I think that's a nice change for her, because obviously she's so reliant on magical abilities, because, she has one stun, she has a lot of damage output, but, just the fact that it's all magic related means anyone with a BKB or, repels, possibly, from Knights, or et cetera, et cetera, all these things are going to basically shut her down for the most part in these fights, so... Yeah, I think it's a great option for her. It gives her that flexibility. If she needs to punch through some magic immunity, now she can just aim for that Aghanims and still be a help later on in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, Lion. Hex cooldown reduced. Basically gets a couple of seconds shaved off it, especially at the later ranks, 15 to 12 at the last rank there, so a little better at CCing people. Reasonable.
The other sort of Hex thing that gets mentioned in actually the bug fixes is that Hex disabling Bristleback no longer a thing. So actually a really nice fix to Bristle. Whether or not that's Lion's Hex or the Hex from Scythe of Eyes or both, maybe some science has to get done. But irregardless, I feel like it's a nice little buff to leveled up Lion, which is, I kind of think it's weird. I feel like his weakness is the early levels. So the fact they're making him better later, I guess, is still nice. Not a huge buff, but I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to make a big deal, though, to be honest.
No, probably not.
I think he's still going to be...
He'll be what he'll be.
Yep. And then kill me, Jay. It's right through my heart. Just...
the Druid of Lone Sorts. Spirit Bear health regen increased from 2. Now it's 2, 3, 4, 5.
I was just so excited about this until I read everything else. Let me tell you. I scrolled
pretty cool.
through. It's nice. I like it. But there's so much other stuff in here that I feel like is so much better against the bear now. I mean, maybe blowing it out of proportion is it's just a handful of things, but if you're able to avoid those handfuls of things, I feel like this is a nice buff, especially to like the level 2 and 3 bear. Like when you're just trying to get it leveled up, I feel like it's a nice little buff and sort of brings the bear back to being a lot harder to stop. You can still burst him down. You can still, slow him and put the crowd control on him. But, now he can have the chance to sit out. You don't have to replace those early bears as much. So I like it. I think it's fine. Lone Druid, when's the last time we've seen him? So I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.